Welcome to Ruby on Rails. I'm your instructor, Daniel Lefebvre. In this video, we're going to cover new project creation in Rails. We'll be using Ruby 2 and Rails 4. Now, if you're not sure which versions of Ruby and Rails that you have installed, you can open Terminal or Command and type Ruby-V to see your Ruby version number, or Rails-V to get the same information from Rails. As you can see, I'm using Ruby 2 and Rails 4. Before we begin, let's look at what you'll need. You're going to need a text editor. You're going to need a fully installed and functional copy of Ruby with Rails installed. You're going to need access to terminal or command prompt with both read and write privileges. And finally, you're going to need a user account with privileges that can run Ruby. It's important when you're running Ruby commands that you're not working as either root or admin. This can cause file permissions that could cause bigger problems for you later down the road. So remember, don't work with Ruby as root or admin. This could cause problems for you later. All right, let's get started. If you haven't already, go ahead and open a copy of Terminal or Command Prompt if you're using Windows. With Terminal open, you'll want to go into a folder where you can create a Ruby project. I call mine Ruby Projects. You can then run the command Rails, new, and then the name of our project, which we're going to call first Ruby Project. When we hit return, Rails is going to create a number of files and folders for us that will set up our project and get it ready for us. Once we've created that project, we can then change directory into that project. First Ruby project, and if we do a listing once we get in there, we'll see that we have a number of different files and folders ready and waiting for us. We're going to be focusing on the app directory today. We'll be editing a file in there in just a moment, but first let's set up a view for our welcome page. We're going to call this view welcome, and that's going to serve as the index page for our whole project. To create this, we're going to use Rails generate controller followed by welcome, because that's the name of the controller that we want to create, and that's going to create a directory called welcome, and then a file called index, which will be our index.html ERB file that is the main file for our page. Great. With this file created, we're going to open our text editor to modify the code. I'm using CodeRunner, but you can use any text editor that you like. I've had a lot of success with Genie in the past and Bluefish, but a lot of people coding in Ruby use Eclipse or NetBeans to do their programming. So almost there. I've opened up my first Ruby project folder. I'm going to my app folder. And in there, I'm going to go into my views. Finally, I'm going into the directory called welcome, and there I see a file called index.html ERB. And in this case, ERB stands for embedded Ruby. And that means that we're creating a file that's basically an HTML file, but we have the ability to add Ruby to it. We're going to edit this file here where it says welcome, and we're going to say, type in our own message. I'm going to type Daniel says welcome to Ruby. And then I'm going to just delete this last little bit that's added for us automatically. So our entire welcome page will consist of nothing but one header, one tag that says Daniel says welcome to Ruby. Now we're going to save that file. With our file changed and saved, the next step is to load our web server. We'll go back to Terminal and we'll type Rails server, or if you prefer, you could just type Rails S and hit return. This will load the Webrick web server, which is hosting our Rails project at port 3000. With this running, we can open our favorite browser. In my case, I'm going to open Chrome. And then we'll type in 127.0.0.1:3000 because our project is running on port 3000. And we'll hit enter. And at first, by typing this, what we're going to see is the welcome aboard. You're writing Ruby on Rails. This page just tells us that Ruby is up and active and our project is working properly. To get to the code that we just modified, we're going to add welcome/welcome/index to our URL, and that will bring up the page that we just created. In this case, ours says, Daniel says, welcome to Ruby. Finally, when we're all done, we'll want to clean up by shutting down our Ruby application. And to do that, we'll go back to terminal, and by holding down the control key and hitting C, that will stop the web host and stop the running of our application. So if we go back to our web browser and hit reload, we'll see, oops, Google couldn't connect. So we can always fix that by running Rails S again. And then our page is running again. You always want to make sure to close your Ruby projects when you're done working on them, unless they're on a live server and they're live pages, because if you go into another terminal and try to run this again, you'll get an error message. That concludes our lesson, creating a new project with Rails. I hope you've enjoyed your time with me, as I've enjoyed my time with you, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.